afternoon, or good morning, excuse me. Having some technical difficulties, but I think we got it. There we go. I want to make sure I'm broadcasting. All right. Good morning to you. Actually, good morning all around the United States, even in the East Coast. I'm in Central Standard Time. It's 10 a.m. here. I know this is holiday, Thanksgiving. Families are gathering. Football is going to be starting soon. I think I'm just before it starts, so I'm right on time. It won't be starting in for another hour or so, unless the early game. But I don't think that even starts for at least another hour. So I want to deal with this matter, but let me put out a few necessary disclaimers. Anytime you're going to touch a subject this touchy, you definitely have to do that. One, I'm not a licensed counselor. I've said this many times on broadcast I've done. I work with licensed counselors, consider all of them to be fantastic people. They've done the work, they've gone to school, they've paid the money, which is largely why I'm not venturing into that space. And they've earned the right to be called licensed professional counselors and to provide on that level. That said, credentials and all of those types of things, I don't like to get into all of that for me personally, because I don't like talking about myself that way. But after going on 33 years in ministry and working with these professionals for the last 4 years, I think I have enough background to be able to at least give some insights and some things that you want to think about. Number two, that's what this is about. Anytime I'm addressing these subjects, and you'll understand if you've been following me on Christian Believers Fellowship, Victory in Christ Broadcasting, or on my Facebook page, um, let me be clear. My other disclaimer is I've been in ministry for 30 years. And so I have a responsibility to a power that is grander than all of us. And whether you believe in God or not is of no consequence to what I do, right? So I don't go at what I do on the basis of whether you believe in God. I go at what I do on the basis that I believe in God. And so I'm on the planet to address those things that are keeping us from being who he wants us to be. So that's my disclaimer, that this is about helping those who are willing to listen. Now, you don't have to be a Christian to listen to this broadcast. And I would suggest that you stay with me. I may be able to share some things from both aspects and really careers in some sense of my life that may be able to give some insight there. Look, let me transition quickly and say this. Um, Trauma is a topic from my years in working with mental health and in my years of in ministry and just generally talking to people in my life that has become a go-to word. And I can give other words. I won't do that because I don't want to go off into other topics. I'm realizing more and more often that the common man, like myself, who doesn't have the education, I have a degree in psychology, but the common man who's not a licensed counselor is becoming more and more comfortable with using this term, but respectfully has no idea what the word means. And part of what my hope is today is to offer a definition, which I'll read here in a moment. I have it up in front of me, but then to give some kind of context to it. Now, I will say this: I have a dear colleague. Was a colleague. Has her own practice, a licensed. I won't say her name because I don't have permission. But she is a licensed counselor. Her husband is a licensed counselor. Has many years of experience in the business. Learned a great deal from her. I am a sponge. She doesn't know I'm doing this broadcast. Well, outside of the notification, I suspect she's spending time with family, as many are. And we talk. And one of the things in the business, when you're not licensed, you have to be quick to make sure you say that. I come from California. It's the suit capital. Well, next to New York, it's the suit capital of the United States. So I'm keenly aware of lawsuits. Let me say, here's my last disclaimer. You want to sue me, feel free. You try to do something I said and it didn't work, so you want to take me to court because I'm a false counselor with all that. Have at it. Enjoy yourself. I've been saying that for 30 years, and nobody's even tried because I'm not here to quote counsel you. I'm here to help you to understand some elements of a thing that you probably are saying and you don't really understand what you're saying. Now, let me say this, and I don't attack my colleagues. I am a team player. I'm the trainer at my job, so I'm a definite team player. But this came up about a year and a half ago. Sitting there amidst my colleagues in the business, including licensed counselors, at least two that were in the room, if I remember correctly, at least two, maybe three that was in the room. I pleaded with them to do training on trauma, to at least give those of us who were in the room that are not licensed some information on how, because we're engaging. What I said almost 2 years ago was, when we are engaging our clients, there's no way around their trauma. There's no way to engage our clients, even though we're not licensed professionals, and not engage their trauma, because they're presenting their trauma. And I can tell you to a person, again, I'm not saying names, but the looks on those licensed providers' faces was telling. And I can tell you now, nearly 2 years later, we never got that training. And this is something this is part of why I'm compelled. I've been thinking about this topic for obviously years. And I've gone through my own personal experience. Won't get into that at this point. That leads me to believe this is a topic that needed to be addressed in some form. And when I brought it up to professionals in a safe environment, hey, we need training on this, you could see it. It was like, Gabe, this is a taboo subject. So let me help you understand something. Even though I'm going to be suggesting counseling before I'm done multiple times, I will tell you trauma in particular as a topic, as a subject, is not something that licensed professionals are quick to address. It is very specific to those who will address it. And as my dear friend, again, not saying her name, gave me insight on, is because counselors are particular. Yeah, they're licensed counselors, but they have particular areas of focus. Let me give you an example that I think will help you understand why I'm saying this before I even get into this. So my dear friend has a substance-focused counseling. She can do general counseling, but she has a substance-focused counseling. Okay, so she helps people with substance abuse or substance use related issues. Now, they may be taking or engaging in substance misuse on the basis of the trauma or a trauma, I'll give the definition in a minute, that they faced in their life, maybe in their childhood, which my family, who are a group of people who offer insights, I'll say it that way to make sure everybody's safe, offer insights to people. We have non-licensed, now I'm the one with the education, but non-licensed, we have come to realize in years and years of ministry, my father's been in ministry almost 60 years, to realize a lot of the traumas, I'm going to use that word now, we didn't use it when we were talking years ago, sitting there at my parents' home, stems from, or a restaurant or wherever we were, from childhood. Not necessarily all together, but a lot of the trauma. And that's going to be an important point. Put a pin in it, as I hear Dr. Kimball say, where I fellowship. So keeping in mind that if many of the traumas that end up impacting our life, and I'll read it in a minute, that end up impacting our life stems from things such as in childhood, teen years, or whatever, into our adult life, I want you to already be thinking about, I'm almost done, if you will, already be thinking about what impact is that having, not just on the one who was traumatized, but on everyone around them. Even though I was talking about this subject 2 years ago, a recent experience about a month ago, it's amazing how much time passes, really got me thinking that this needs to be addressed, because part of what I experienced a month ago next week came out of the person's trauma. They even alluded to and used the word repeatedly. And I didn't put it together. I asked this of my colleagues, licensed counselors, one of which in the room has 40 years of experience, and I never got any training on this in terms of a mental health professional. They stayed away from that topic like a plague. Now, keep in mind their licensing and all of that, and if they don't handle such situations, again, I come from Sioux capital of the United States, California. So I understood why it became very, well, I don't want to touch that, and I'm not going to mess with that. I got that point, but then when I was going through a personal situation and hearing the word trauma and all of those kind of mental health terms that I use at work coming out of this person's mouth who I know personally, I realized the person I was speaking to a month ago has no idea what they mean by the word trauma, and the people who are professionals who have some idea of what's meant don't even want to engage it. So I want to just put it out there on the table. This is a very powerful topic, and I'm going to do my best to handle it with as much care as I can. Now, let me answer this question. Why Thanksgiving? Why not? Why not? Why not Thanksgiving? The fact of the matter is people are coming together all over the United States, and some people may even be celebrating, even though it's a relatively speaking, it's a national holiday, but there may be people celebrating whatever in other places. And I can tell you from my own experience that there are people who are coming together or will be coming together at some point, if they're not already together, who are traumatized, who have all kinds of situations that have happened in their life, may be still happening. You don't know how many people I've spoken to who talked about uncle who did whatever at the Thanksgiving so-and-sos. You have no idea how many people, because of ministry, that I have engaged who hated when family would come together because that drunk uncle this, that mean auntie this, who was traumatizing them at today's events. Some sad kid right now is dreading because mom keeps taking them into the environment where they are going to be pushed off into a closet. You don't want me to go any further, but let's just get honest. Why not today? They've reached out. They've said, Mom, Dad, bro, somebody, please hear me. I don't want to go, but hey, we're family and we have to go. We don't even realize. Now I'm ahead of myself. Let's slow down for a second and let's get this in. So I'm going to give you a definition. This is way more than I got sitting among my professionals, my professional colleagues. We didn't even get a definition, but I'm going to give you one that you can look up, of course, yourself. Trauma is a deeply disturbing, distressing or disturbing event that can cause physical, listen, I'm going to go carefully, physical and emotional harm with lasting adverse effects on an individual's well-being. Let me get that part again. With lasting adverse effects on an individual's well-being. It can be caused by a single event or by a series of events, such as a serious accident, a violent attack, natural disasters, or prolonged abuse. Like going to Thanksgiving dinner, even though little one said, Mom, uncle touches me in the room, and you just keep taking them. Keep taking them. Because you got in your head, well, I'll just protect you. Today is a good day for this one. Trauma's impact is subjective, which is one of the reasons why counselors are real cautious about touching this particular subject. I'm going to touch it today, but counselors, licensed counselors, won't touch it. I don't have a license to lose. And while it can result in immediate physical energy, such as in a car accident, it also has significant, listen, emotional and psychological consequences, including symptoms that can last long after the events have passed. Trauma's impact is subjective, and while it can result in immediate physical injury, it also has significant emotional and psychological consequences, including symptoms that can last long after the event has passed. I'm going to give you this, and I'm not going to dwell on it just real quick. We've covered this in group because, again, I don't shy away from topics. Types of traumatic events. Acute trauma, a single life-threatening event like a car crash or a sexual assault. Now, I'm just reading. Chronic trauma, a long-term pattern of distressing experiences such as, I'm just reading, childhood abuse or neglect. And then finally, the one that most counselors, unless you're well trained in this, will just not touch, complex trauma, the result of multiple traumatic events. And then it lists what I'm not going to list, but I'll drop down to effects. It lists types of traumatic experiences. I'm not going to do that. Let's go to effects of trauma. Physical symptoms, a racing heart, shallow breathing, nausea or shaking. That's physical. Emotional and behavioral symptoms, intrusive memories, nightmares, feeling on edge, angry, guilt, or feeling numb. Mental and social symptoms, difficulty sleeping, feeling disconnected from others, or having a hard time processing the event. We're going to work this. We're going to work today. Long-term impact. If symptoms persist, they may indicate conditions of post-traumatic stress disorder. If symptoms persist, now we get PTSD, because that's the persisting of the stuff I already read. Mental and social symptoms, emotional and behavioral symptoms, physical symptoms. I want you to think about for a moment how many potentially hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people have gone through acute, chronic, or even complex trauma. They have not gone to counseling, because I told you that my colleagues about almost 2 years ago sat in that room like, we don't touch that. And respectfully speaking, if they don't have the training for touching trauma, you don't expect them to touch it. And a car accident or vehicle accident lawyer is not equipped to deal with murder. So you don't expect you don't go to, almost said a name of somebody here in the area, but you don't go to them who handles car accidents and ask them to deal with murder. You don't ask them to do that, or unaliving people. It's a video to be taken down. You don't ask them to do that. And we have to understand, in the mental health field, that's true in the mental health field. There are types of nurses. There are types of doctors. Okay? And in mental health, there are counselors who deal with marriage and family, and there are counselors who deal with trauma, and there are counselors who deal with substance. Okay? I'll tell you the truth. I've come across very few counselors in the just breadth of my life. I've been around educated people all my life. And of course, my education's in psychology. I've come across very few who venture into dealing with trauma in particular. There are books out there by Dr. XYZ. Find me out and I'll get you some resources if you want to read. But here's what one of those professional people told me. You have to be careful, because you can re-traumatize a person. I want you to listen. I'm transitioning. You ready? Because this is where we're going today. You have to be careful, Gabe, in this business, because you can end up re-traumatizing a person, trying to help them to deal with the acute or the chronic or the complex traumas, those events, the deeply distressing and disturbing events that cause them physical and emotional harm. And so counselors have to walk very carefully in helping them to unpack that. Let me give that to you again, because I think you are beginning to understand where I'm going. Counselors have to walk very carefully in helping people who have gone through traumatic experiences, no matter when it happened in their life, because they can end up traumatizing. These are licensed, trained counselors who have to be very careful, which is why many of them won't do it. They'll just refer you to someone else because they don't want to re-traumatize you. Now, here's where we got to go today. Now, imagine the person who got traumatized as a child, who never got any kind of anything. Trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing event that can cause physical and emotional harm. And then later it says, with psychological consequences, including symptoms that can last long after the events have passed. And they don't get any counseling. And they're at your Thanksgiving meal today. They're on dating sites. Oh, it's going to get interesting today. They're on dating sites. They're engaged to get married. They're raising children or have raised children, maybe raising grandchildren. They're working on jobs. They're driving out on the same streets you're driving on. I may be referring to you. They have gone through these distressing events. They've gone through these perplexing events, and no one, including them, have ever addressed it. You know what they did? Exactly what human beings were not created to do. They repressed and depressed, and they can't figure out why. They go through bouts of depression. I came today to say what a licensed counselor has to be careful to say, because they don't want to lose their license. Well, I don't have a license to lose. The depression may be coming because you're trying to depress and repress traumatic events that you have gone through that caused you physical and emotional harm. And you won't even allow anyone around you to say anything about it. Now, it's going to get tough through here. I love you. Because what I'm about to say may even sound personal. But understand, I say it, and I'm going to say it in general so that you get how serious this is. See, part of wanting to address this is because looking back over my own life, even recently, careful. I have engaged with people in my life on personal levels and professional levels who have undoubtedly gone through trauma. I just so happen to be one of those people, and I say this stuff all the time, and those who know me know it to be true. Those who don't know me may think I'm bragging, but it's just the truth. Since I was a kid, people have, for whatever reason, even though I think I know the reason, have trusted to tell me their trauma. I didn't know the word when I was in 4th grade, and the kid, I don't even remember who the kid was telling me what they were going through. I don't even know why they chose me. I'm 51 going on 52. I can't remember what the circumstances was. I know we were playing on the playground, and for some reason they trusted to tell me what they were going through. And trust me, they were serious. I can remember even now. They were very serious. I think I shared this, matter of fact, my last broadcast on Wednesday. I went home to my father and I said, Dad, somebody was telling me their problems. What do I do? He said, listen. He didn't tell me, boy, you can't do nothing with that. Leave them people alone. Nope, it's not what he said. He didn't tell me to go tell parents. He didn't tell me to go tell teachers. He didn't tell me to go tell the principal. He just said, listen. I don't know if he knew then what I would end up becoming in my life. Maybe he did. I wouldn't be surprised. But he told me, listen. Which, by the way, let me give my first recommendation. Talk to people who will listen. They may not have solutions. They may not have suggestions. This may not be a licensed counselor, but talk to people with whom you can share the events that traumatized you, and you can trust them to have nothing else. Listen, and yes, maintain your confidentiality. Yes, of course. But people in your life, and Gabe, I don't have that kind of person. I'm cautious about extending myself like that, but if you just need somebody that you can talk to, I'll make myself available to you. Because what I've learned in my experience is just being able to say it out of your mouth is in and of itself life-changing. Because guess what? While you're sitting at that Thanksgiving table today and you haven't shared it with anybody, do you understand you've gone through these traumatic, now you have a definition, traumatic events, and maybe it's still happening? Because here's another piece that you're not thinking about. Because of your attempt to try to repress it, to try to push it down, it is in my belief that you are actually traumatizing yourself by trying to act like it didn't happen. By trying not to deal with it, you are actually traumatizing yourself, because we were not built nor meant, and yes, I'm a Christian, so we were not created by God to repress. The Bible says we are helpers one to another. We were meant to be able to talk to each other. That's what we were meant to do. Now, again, I'm careful here. I have been married more than once. This is public knowledge for those who watch these broadcasts. And I can say more than one of the individuals I was married to went through trauma. I'll say it just like that. More than one. So I'm not specific. More than one of them went through trauma, went through childhood trauma in particular, and some adulthood trauma. And I can say this with confidence. And if they so happen to be listening to this at some point, I'm not going to say they're going to tell you, don't go ask them, but they could tell you that having somebody to listen to them was important. It didn't fix it, but it was important to have someone to listen. And as a listener for the last 30-something years, of which is my entire adult life, I've been in ministry my entire adult life, 19 years old. I've been around it all my life, but I've been in it since 19. So for my entire adult life, having someone to listen is extremely important. Again, it doesn't fix it, but it's so important to get that stuff off your shoulders or off your chest. I don't know how to explain it to you, but I have watched, I have been on the phone for hours and hours and hours and hours, many times. I don't know how to explain this to you. Men and women, by the way, not just women. Because you think women, no, I have had conversations with men. I have seen men in tears. I have hugged men and told them it's going to be okay. This is not just a woman thing. Hours and hours and hours willfully spent working with men and women to help them to understand. I may not be licensed, but I'm about as close as you can get. Truth be told. I'll just let that be. One of the crucial pieces is understanding that if you're repressing the events, you are traumatizing yourself. I'll just let that sit for a second. I'll let that sit for a second. I've already said so much, your brain's got to catch up. So let's let that one sit. If you are pushing them down and you keep telling people around you who see things are not right, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Not only are you lying, oh, I'll tell you, know me, I'll tell you, but you are traumatizing yourself. And now let's add to your traumatizing yourself substances. Let's add to that broken relationships. Let's add to that miscommunications. Let's add to that losses of jobs, potentially because anxiety attacks and all the things, the symptoms. Remember, I read them. The symptoms: racing heart, shallow breathing, nausea, shaking. You've lost jobs. You've quit jobs because you were experiencing the traumas, the symptoms of the traumas. Remember what I read: long after the events, those symptoms can continue. Not maybe you don't have the physical. How about the emotional and behavioral? Intrusive memories, nightmares, feeling on edge, anger, guilt, or feeling numb, difficulty sleeping, feeling disconnected from others. Oh, I could spend some time on that one. That's a recent one. I heard that multiple times. Or having a hard time processing the event. Or having a hard time processing the event. And you need a person outside of you. You don't want to go to a counselor. You don't have the medical coverage to go to a counselor, or you can't find a counselor willing to address trauma or certain types of trauma, whatever that has been caused. Well, then you need somebody. It doesn't have to be me. I'm not pitching me. You need somebody like me who ain't gonna charge you no money. By the way, it's why you can't sue me. This is for free. Can't sue me. You're listening because you want to, or you can turn it off anytime you want. You can't sue me because I'm not charging you. This is for free. And by the way, everything I'm saying, I can back up. By the way, again, I've been doing this a long time. The fact of the matter is, because you're having a hard time processing the events, and in many cases, especially, let me say this, if you are a parent, whether your kids are grown or not, you likely, if you didn't get it addressed, you didn't talk to anybody, you likely repressed. You have repressed the whole, however old your kids are, you repressed. However old your kids are. So let's say you went through childhood trauma, right? Had children and never got that addressed with counseling or people you could talk to get that off your, people that would believe you and listen to you. Imagine, let's say you got a 40-year-old kid, a 50-year-old kid, you're 70 years old, you never got any of that addressed, and now Gabe is telling you that you've been traumatizing yourself. And I'm gonna add, I know, I'm not trying to traumatize you myself, but I gotta tell you, and guess what? You traumatized those kids. Now 50, now 40, now 30. Gabe, no, I didn't. You did your best. No one's here to say you didn't do your best, but if you were repressing your own trauma, how do you think you did with helping them to deal with trauma that they were facing? If any of their trauma was indicative of your own trauma, do you think you were really open to listen to them? If you went through sexual abuse as a child, do you really think you were open to sit there and have the tough conversation and you never dealt with your own? Do you really think you were open? Do you really? Or did you find yourself, and I love you, but did you find yourself giving them your ways of repression? Did you inadvertently, I don't think you did it on purpose, but did you find yourself giving them your ways of repression, your ways of pushing it down? Hey, we still got to go to work. You know, we still got to do, I'm with you. I got that. I'll carry all the distress. I'll carry all the perplexity. I'll worry about that, baby. You just go to school. I'll worry about all that, son. You just do this. No. What they needed was counseling. What you needed was counseling. And you didn't want to do this. You actually thought you were doing better, but what you did was repress, and then you taught them to repress. They watched you repress. They watched those symptoms, physical, emotional, mental, and they just followed you. They just did what you did. It might have looked different. You didn't get into substance. They got into substance, and you knew that they tried to tell you, and you're just sitting there, but you can't address it because you're still repressing. You're still pushing it down. You still feel bad, but you can't say anything because then you're going to have to come clean like you did something to yourself. No, something happened to you. You went through something, but because you decided not to address it, that was a choice you made. That was your choice to make, and you made it. Now you have children, potentially grown children, and they are not directly addressing the issues. And anyone who comes along who can help them address the issues, you got to make sure those people only help those grown children in a very specific way, because if they start tipping over into how they were raised, they might unearth the fact that there were times when that child was reaching out, crying out, calling out, and needing something more. And because you didn't deal with your own, you didn't let them deal with theirs. And as a matter of fact, they're still around you now because they don't know how to live completely without you, because they need you as a part of their repression. You didn't mean to do that, but you became a part of their repression. You became a part of their pushing it down. So now they can't afford for you to go. We have grown clients. That's all we work with, is grown people whose parents were there and have died, and that person fell apart, not just because of their mental health, schizophrenia, and all of that, but because there was traumas in that person's life. I have seen it in the going on 4 years I've been at this job. I have seen it in my personal life. I've seen it. I have seen it in my interactions in ministry. I have watched it. I didn't know all exactly what I was looking at, but I do now. It was unchecked, unaddressed trauma. It was all kind of life events. It was all kind of situations that went unaddressed. See, I don't have to get into trauma, the events of trauma. I don't have to touch that. I want to talk about what happens when you're traumatized. I want to talk about what we do after that. Now, let me say this. It sounds like I'm now blaming. No, 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 no. I'm pointing out. I'm making as clear as possible, because we used to sing a song, where there's life, there's hope. If you're breathing and you have the opportunity to give some address to the matter, I'm begging you, I told you I was going to mention it, please seek out help. Seek it out. Don't just hear me say these things, say Gabe is just being mean, and then go bury it more and use me as an excuse to bury it more. I'm willing to do what you won't allow the people around you to do, and point it out so that you can get help with it. Because again, you haven't had anyone able to listen and to relate and to be able to say, this is what's going on. Because, and I'm careful with my own experiences because they're connected to other people, but I'm fairly convinced part of what happened in my life a month ago was I was a victim of somebody's trauma, and not just somebody, a family of people. All kinds of things unaddressed. Unaddressed. And I had to walk with kid gloves. Of course I did. Of course I did. And I was willing to do that. But somebody needed to say, hey, ain't nothing going forward until there's counseling, and we got to get in here and begin to and do the work. Counseling is work. Let me be clear with you if I haven't said it before. Counseling is work, not just the work of the counselor. The counselor, if he's any good or she's any good, they're going to put the work back on you, where you have to come in, because as I read, let's do it again, difficulty sleeping, feeling disconnected from others. You don't know how many times in that situation I heard feeling disconnected. And I was told that I was the reason for the disconnect. And at no point was there anyone stopping in the situation to say, maybe the reason why we're feeling disconnected is because we are walking around, stay with me for a second, it's going to get rough, but it's going to get better, with this, what I'm calling a trauma quilt. We have lived under this trauma quilt. We have protected ourselves with this trauma quilt. The problem with a trauma quilt is, and I say a quilt because quilts are pieced together. That's what a quilt is. The problem with a trauma quilt is underneath that quilt are shards of the things that happen to you, are blades and knives and that are harming you. And you're wearing this as a protection. Since you went through the event, you have put this quilt on and you have added, what did I read? Multiple events. You've been traumatized by all kinds of events. And now someone who is capable maybe of helping and listening and helping you walk through it, and it cares and concerns, is the one being attacked. Because here's the next point. I'm actually almost done. Because when we don't deal with our trauma, we push it down, we not only traumatize ourselves, but here's where it really gets bad. We start traumatizing other people because they might very well have an ability or the desire to address the trauma. They're not trained. Big Mama's not trained. Papa ain't trained. Fiancés, husbands, wives, even your grown children, moms and dads who are looking at you and seeing that maybe you were able to somehow raise them well, and now they know and they begin to hear about the things you went through, and they try to avail themselves to you. And that's the kid that you say, yeah, baby, no, I got it. I'm your mama. I'm your daddy. And you end up attacking them. You don't mean to do it, but anybody who comes to try to help you do what you've been refusing to do, you attack them. I'm going to tell you, I know this professionally, and I know it ministerially, and I know it personally. I've gone through it multiple times. And I'm not sour on relationships. Don't get it twisted. I'm not sour. I think marriage is a wonderful thing. You can find the person for you. But are you prepared even in that? Marriage is the choice relationship. Parenting is child is born. Marriage is the choice relationship. But are you really prepared if you come to the situation with your trauma quilt on? You know you've been through multiple situations or something that happened a long time ago that you never dealt with, and you know you didn't. You got no professional help. You have had no one in your life that you could trust to tell anything to, and then you get 2 people that you could tell them to, but now you want them to be a part of your quilt. No, it's time to take the quilt off. You got to get the quilt off. Now you got to take it off carefully, because you've been wearing the quilt maybe for decades. For decades, you've been wearing this quilt that has been stabbing you underneath. It looks beautiful on the outside. You have everybody on the outside thinking that you're all good. But underneath the quilt, it's the traumas that's cutting you. It's the traumas that's stabbing you. It's what big uncle did. It's what mama's boyfriend did. It's what daddy's girlfriend did. It's when you got fired from the job that you never thought you would lose. It's what happens when you go through a natural disaster and everything. Everybody went through this one. Pandemic, COVID, and people saw couples, I mean, whole families got sick, and many of them passed away. And nobody that I know of who went through those things, that I know of personally, got counseling. Nobody went and sat down and talked to the kind of professionals I work with daily to try to get some of that stuff out. One of the most traumatic things you can suffer is the passing of someone, especially when you didn't anticipate them dying. And if you don't get counseling, how in the world are you thinking you're going to just move forward in life? I'll just grieve kind of in this quiet way, or I'll just keep on plugging away because, you know, they will want me to do that. I get that. I understand that. And to some extent, life forces you to do that. But at some point, you got to go and sit down with somebody. You got to have people that you will allow, hear my words, that you will allow them to say the tough things to you, to say, hey, look, you haven't really been getting any sleep. Hey, look, you know, you really been edgy here. You've been angry. What's going on with you? Well, it's your fault because you didn't do and you don't measure up. That's the last thing you want to do, because guess what you're now doing? The hardest one that I have to share. You are traumatizing people. You are traumatizing people, whether you want to admit it or not. And I know you never thought anybody would ever be able to say it to you. You don't even know why you're still watching this broadcast on Thanksgiving 2025. Hopefully you're watching it because something is resonating in your mind. You might be mad at me. Okay, I'll survive. People have been mad at me before and I didn't die. But what's the fact? The fact of the matter is you didn't intend to do it. That's why it's so important. Let me read it again. Long lasting consequences beyond the event. You've lost, you've been hurt, you've been angry, you've been confused, things happen to you, but nobody deserves to suffer trauma behind your trauma. And then you're able to cover your behavior by going, well, I've gone through some stuff. Quilt. That's what I mean by the quilt. And then soon as they try to give address to what they're experiencing from you, you grab your quilt of jacked upness, of trauma, and say, oh, you can't touch me. You can't touch me because you know I've been through some stuff. When did going through stuff give us excuse to misbehave and mistreat people? Anybody? Ain't nobody gonna say nothing. I understand. I get it. I wouldn't say anything either. I wouldn't give an address to that because we all have done it. I've done it. I've done it. And thank God I said thank God, was willing to hear when I had done it. And people have pointed it out more than once. And I was able to go, you know what? You're right on that. I apologize because I had no right. I said it to somebody recently. I actually had to say it to my son. I have no right to come at you because of my own hurt. End quote. Matter of fact, I said it sitting right on this couch to at least 2 people. Because like me, no one has a right to attack somebody because they've been traumatized by events. No one has a right. So now you want to know why people don't talk to you? You think it's because you're too awesome, or maybe because you're just too unique. Is it possible? Is it possible that you have not engaged your trauma and you have gone so long that now people who try to carefully, and some maybe not so carefully, because again, very few people are trained to deal with this stuff. I have a unique kind of upbringing. that allows me to deal with it. But very few people in everyday life are trained. Husbands are not trained to handle their wives' trauma. Wives are not trained to handle, I don't care how nurturing you are. Trauma is a different kind of thing. You have to have some understanding that extends past just, oh, honey, it's going to be all right. No, you have to be willing to sit with it and listen and go through it. And yes, occasionally you might even become the person in the eye of that storm. But you have to have the ability to say to that person, and there have to be some boundaries. One of the biggest issues in my previous situation recent is there were no boundaries set up to keep the trauma from just running over me. There was no boundaries set up. I thought that maybe once everything was established and stable, then we could begin to engage the trauma and, of course, encourage counseling, but it didn't happen, and I got railroaded by the trauma of multiple people. There was no chance. Thankfully, I serve a God who knows how to protect his children. He told me what to do to handle it. Who do you think told me to do this broadcast? Sadly, once you reach a point where you are traumatizing others because of what you've legitimately gone through, you have legitimately faced trauma, you have legitimately gone through events, maybe a series of events. I gave you basically the framework for post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm curious, for some of you who will eventually watching live or watching this back, will begin to think, I have gone through multiple things. Is it possible that I'm actually dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder? Do you understand? And I work in a business of diagnoses. That's what drives what we do. We set up a treatment plan. That's what shapes what we do. But what underlines what we do is the diagnosis. So if somebody is diagnosed as a schizophrenic, then the treatment plan that we follow is the schematic for how we engage in the skills. See, it doesn't make any sense for me to get on here and start talking about a bunch of skills and journaling and all of that. I do it every day. But if you're not willing to accept the fact that your trauma, it requires some kind of process, boundaries have to be built in, all of those things, then somebody like Gabe gets victimized. I get victimized behind people's trauma because they don't want anybody to touch that quilt. So then I get victimized because I am nice, despite popular belief. I will listen for hours and 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 hours. I don't care what title you give me. I'm one of those people. I will sit and I will listen and I will engage you, and I'm willing to put myself out there to be able to help people to deal with these long-standing effects of the things that they've gone through. Man, I've done sessions. No, I'll say what I want to say. I've done sessions and not connected to my job. Again, I'm a pastor, man. Just figure it out, people. Pastoral counsel. Yeah, I said it. Again, come for me. Ain't no money. I have sat with people and done multiple sessions with people and listened to some of the worst things that can happen to human beings on the planet. This is for decades. I've done this. Decades, and never charged. Not a dime. All I ever tell people is whatever you want to do, that's what you do. Didn't charge nothing. Didn't set a fee. I can't. I'm not licensed. So I didn't set no fees. I just simply availed myself to whoever and whatever they needed for me to do. And please understand, and I say this lovingly because you might be watching and you've done this to me, but I've been traumatized by people. Their events became my trauma. So, Gabe, why do you keep doing it? Because it's what I'm on the planet to do. I have boundaries, ladies and gentlemen. After all these years, I've learned how to close my mouth. As a matter of fact, in the recent situation, that's what God told me to do, to shut up. And I did. I did, and it cost me. It cost me. But the price that I had to pay, considering what I was about to embark on, given how I was treated, made sense. Because let me say this to those of you who are currently being traumatized by someone who hasn't addressed their trauma. I gotta help you too. What I'm going to say is tough. And I just told you, I experienced this recently. I got traumatized by somebody's trauma. I lost what I did not anticipate losing. I was told I don't even care. I never cared. And I was always out to do this, that, and the third. It didn't matter how much I did. Because one of the things I realized, when you have a trauma quilt, after a while, you start collecting. You start seeing everything as trauma. Everything is trauma, whether it is traumatic or not. It all becomes traumatic. Now no one can touch you at all, not even the people who are closest to you. No one can really get to you out of the fear that they're going to traumatize you by anything they say and do. And when you start calling people who are on your side and are there for you, trying to help you, as people who are actually traumatizing you, now you've gone to a place that very few people can come back for. I'm not saying you cannot, but please, I always want to come and lay it out to you and then you deal with it. You might be going to a place now. Why do you think, unfortunately, the S word, as we call it sometimes in group, you know what that word is. Why do you think people eventually unalive themselves? Because they crossed that barrier where they said no one was there. No, there were people who were there. There were people who was reaching out. I've come to discover in many cases where people are claiming no one was there, someone was there, but that's the one that you traumatized when they tried to help you. The closer they got to the trauma, the closer they got to your trauma quilt, the more you start pushing them away. You start blaming them. You start saying, get out of my face. Get away from me. You're the fault. You're the cause. You're the reason. You're doing to me what other people did to me. You're worse than they are because I trusted you. And now look at, I told you everything and I did it. And now you are going after them. And those are the people who were there, who were listening. So now when you start considering taking your own life, it's because you have matter-of-factly pushed away the people who said, are you okay? You pushed away the people who said, something seems wrong. And you said, I'm good. You pushed them away. And then wrote the letter that says, now nobody loves me, nobody cares. And unfortunately, if you do take your life, or if that person takes their life, no one can go back to them and say, hey, I care. I've been trying to talk to you. And then I get the residual as a pastor to talk to the one who's left behind, and they're beating themselves up because Gabe, I tried. Pastor Matthews, I tried. Pastor Gabe, I tried. Yes, I know. And now I got to help them through the trauma of having tried, got turned down, got pushed away, and the person took their life. And now you got a perpetual trauma. Now you got generational trauma. I'm coining that word right now. Now you got not generational curse, you got generational trauma, because one generation is just traumatizing another and traumatizing the next one. And no matter how hard you're trying to not do it, because you won't deal with the trauma you've gone through, even if the trauma was behind somebody else, you're just likely going to sadly traumatize the next. Easy target. Easy targets. You're going to go after the easy targets. Those are the people, typically when you're talking about trauma, who are closest to you, who care most about you, and are having to be vulnerable. Look, if you're going to help somebody, Gabe, I'm like you, and help me, okay, let me give you some too. So if you feel like you're like me and God put you on, God, I said it, put you on this planet to help people with trauma, you're not a counselor any more than I am. Look, you're going to have to set some boundaries. And here was where I was going a moment ago. And you're going to have to be willing to watch those people walk out of your life. And that's the sad part. That's why I'm still grieving almost a month later, because even though I got a great support system, starting with God and then spilling over into family and friends, and have been a great help to me, the fact is, once you set those boundaries and will not allow yourself to be traumatized by people's trauma, you're going to lose relationships. I'm just going to tell you, you're going to lose relationships with people that you don't want to lose relationships with. Look, if you think you're called to this thing that I'm called to, you think you're built to do what I'm doing, cool, come on over. We need as many people over here as we can get. But understand, while you crossing that threshold, I'm gonna tell you now, you got to be careful, because when people think you're genuinely trying to help them, they'll accuse you of not trying to help them. Even though you're right there, you're taking it, you're listening, you're enduring it, you're being careful, you're doing your best to try to not traumatize them further. You're doing what you can, but you're just an easy target. You're right there. You're right there. You know, they crucified Jesus who was healing people. You know, they crucified Jesus who was opening blinded eyes. You know, they crucified Jesus who was causing the lame to walk and the dumb to talk. They also killed his apostles. They killed many of his followers. Why? Because they were easy targets. I'm a Christian, so I am required to love people despite themselves. But let me be clear, I'm not a victim. I will not be victimized. You may accuse me, you may attack me, you may interpret my behavior in some way to be traumatizing you. But when the Lord tells me to get out of there, guess what? I'm out. I'm out. I'll let you talk yourself into his hands and out of mine. And I'm going to say to anybody crossing this threshold, Martin Luther King. I ain't got to go Jesus. How about Martin Luther King? Do you know not everyone who looks like me was in support of him? Do you know not everyone who looks like me, who looks like him, was actually backing him? And not just him, but others in the movement, until they started getting some of the results and the blessings, being able to vote. Then all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Go unto your own, and your own receive you not. So my own kicked me to the curb. What was going to be my own kicked me to the curb. And I have to let it be. And that's one of the things, if you're going to help people with trauma, and you know that they've gone through some things, and you know their history, you know they've gone. Hey, the one thing you want to do is say, hey, let me ask you something. If they let you do it, look, I'm gonna be honest. They may not let you do it. I'm just being honest. But if they let you, ask them, have you gotten counseling? I know what our uncle did. I know mom made you the black sheep in the family. Have you got counseling for that? They may go off on you. Listen, love them anyway. I get away from them, but love them. Have you got counseling for that job? Because you were making 50, 60,000 a year, and you've been struggling financially for the last 5-6 years. Have you got counseling for that? Have you talked to a pastor, an elder, a priest? Have you sat down with anyone? I ain't got time for that. I'm just trying to, like you said, I lost that job and I'm just trying to survive. Hey, man, no, you need to sit. You need to sit down. If you don't want to sit down with me, I get it. I'm not qualified. I get it. But you need to get some kind of counseling. If you've been homeless, I'm a housing specialist on my job. If you've been in chronic homelessness, it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing. If you feel like you're living beneath how you were raised, and Big Mama's gone now, and it didn't work out, and you made some extremely bad financial decisions that have left you in abject poverty. I don't want to list a bunch of traumatic situations because I'm not trying to trigger anyone, but I'm just trying to say enough for you to understand. You need not just marital situations or engagement or raising children. Those are where we obviously go, hey, you went through a car accident. I got hit from behind multiple times. It was difficult for me to get in the car and drive for years. I don't have a problem with it now, but for years, after one particular accident, 1993, leaving my parents' house on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, we got struck, my then wife, we got hit from behind. It was a minute. I had to drive, but it was hard not to be constantly checking the rear view and not even paying attention to what was in front of me. Look, there are things that are traumatic that happen to us. My son in the mental health situation he went through, thank God, now 6 years ago, he's doing well. That was traumatic for him, and it was traumatic for me, and it was traumatic for his mother and his siblings. It was traumatic to see him in that situation and condition. It was traumatic for a lot of people, and I had to deal with, I haven't talked openly about this, but I had to deal with the trauma of that all those years ago, while on the having just become an associate pastor. Literally that Sunday, and then 2 days later, he's in his situation. That was traumatic. That was traumatic. There is no doubt about that was traumatic for a lot of us, for all of us in some form. And I'm grateful for the again, God is at the top of this, but my support system that helped me so that I could help him. Look, don't try to help people with trauma and you haven't dealt with your own. Don't get in there trying to be a guru. And this is where you really get in trouble. Gabe, why have you been able to successfully help people for 30 years? Because I'll tell you up front, like I told y'all, I'm not a counselor. Well, I'm also not Jesus. So I don't go at helping people like I'm their savior. I come in prepared to listen. What are you talking about? What have you been through? There are people who have suffered all manners of situations. Again, I don't want to list anything. All manners of situations behind people who they thought loved them, who they thought cared for them, who they thought was behind them. There are people who have gone through cancer multiple times. Man, counseling, unless you got extremely strong support, you might want to, because cancer kills, not everybody, but cancer kills a lot of people. So when you get a cancer diagnosis and they say stage 3 and all of this kind, man, you might need to add to your trying to recover and go through chemo some counseling. That's a pretty devastating diagnosis. And obviously I have family members who've been through that. Some have died, some have not. Thanks be to God either way. But understand, if you're getting that kind of news, you're told that your heart issues or whatever, you have this long to live. Some people have lost loved ones around this holiday. That's traumatic. That's traumatic. You need to seek out those, but don't hurt them just because they are willing to listen and you can lay upon them all of the sordid details of your life doesn't then give you permission to attack them if they don't now behave towards you now going forward. That's just trying to add them. Remember my trauma quilt. You're just trying to add them to your trauma quilt, and you want to dictate how everyone around you who knows some piece of your life and what you've been through, you're trying to dictate how they now have to deal with you. Well, y'all know what I've been through, so now I was raised in a house, my siblings and then 2 cousins at one point. Now, we had different family members live with us in different spots, but these 2 cousins were there for years. These young men had gone through, one of them is on my Facebook page, the other one unfortunately is deceased as of 32 years ago, come Christmas Eve. Those young men have been through all kinds of trauma. Now, again, I'm a kid. They're older than me. So I didn't know this word at 9 years old. But those young men had been through trauma. And I'm not mad at my parents. I love them dearly. Again, this was 32 years ago. But those young men needed counseling. Of course, I'm a professional now. And looking back, considering the trauma they had been through, I won't get into that personal business because I have their siblings, my cousins, on my Facebook page, but they needed counseling. The things that they were engaging in as teenagers and now coming into this septic environment. Their uncle is a pastor, preacher. We all go to worship, sing, play music, and they come into this environment, but they brought all that trauma with them. And unfortunately, my parents didn't have somebody like me to tell them those young men need to get counseling. They needed counseling. They needed counseling. We're not saying they did evil or good. It's not about judging them in terms of what they ended up doing in their life. They needed counseling. I know you got this family over everything, and so no matter what, no, before you bring somebody who has just come out of a devastating relationship into your home, before you bring somebody who was in abject poverty and traumatized when they were poor, and now you feel like God has blessed me and I got 10 extra rooms, I'll just bring them in and you can just live and eat and be happy, and you can't figure out why they keep going back out there to the streets. You can't figure out why they keep leaving your warm home, why they keep leaving the comforts of because they've been traumatized and they have learned behavior. I'm trying not to do this, but they have learned behavior. The word we use in the business is abnormal. It's not normal behavior. They're operating. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this. What you have to understand is when a person is traumatized, especially as a child, the behavior that they go into, the mode, which we would say they go into a survival mode. Well, survival mode works, but it's only supposed to be brief. So if some little boy, sadly, was taken off into a closet, you can figure out the rest, and mistreated, every time he sees that family member, or he sees mom's or dad's friend, or whatever the case may be, or even one of his schoolmates, he goes into survival mode, fight or flight. He goes into survival mode. So that's why we say to him, speak up if something happens to you, so that we can keep him not only from having to suffer the events, but it is just as traumatic. It is, oh my goodness, it is just as traumatic to have to go into survival mode. Well, this time, my big brother's friend didn't get me off into the corner, but he leered at me the whole time he was at the house. He stared at me and he made inappropriate gestures, and I ran and I stood next to mama the whole time trying to survive his presence. I made it through. That was traumatic for that little boy, to have to stand next to mama and, boy, won't you go play? Your brother's friend is here. Oh, no, I'm good. I'll just be with you. I'll just be with you. I wonder why he do that. I wonder why. I thought he liked him. I thought he liked, his brother's friend. He might have until he was pushed off into the corner. He might have until he was mishandled. And now he's in survival mode. Every time his name is mentioned, he starts crying. He starts screaming. Now he's a little bigger, and he's been telling himself, I'm not going to let it happen again. And so now he's punching walls, and now he's attacking his mother. And his mother's like, boy, you better get yourself together. She doesn't understand that every time she doesn't have any training. She doesn't know every time he hears that name of his brother's now grown friend, it scares him. But now he's a little bigger. He's preteen or he's teenager, and I'll fight and I'll swing and I'll punch. Now, I tried to tell y'all through all these means, but y'all not listening. I'm in survival mode. That is traumatizing as well. That's traumatizing as well. And that friend just loves coming over. He comes over even when he's not invited. He just keeps popping up, and he's going to be at Thanksgiving dinner because now the little boy is grown, and his brother keeps bringing that friend, but he's still traumatized because he never got counseling. He has learned behavior. He has learned behavior. He's now 20 years old. His brother is 27 years old. His friend is 20. His brother's friend is 27. And the brother's friend might have moved on because he's not a little boy. But that now 20-year-old has learned behavior. He was traumatized throughout his childhood. And now he has learned behavior. And even though he's 20, he's acting out. He's traumatizing others. I've already covered all this. He's traumatizing others. Oh, he may not be pushing little boys over in the corners, but he's fighting people that even act like that friend of his brother. He's been in and out of jail. He's got big muscles now. He's got tattoos everywhere. So his brother's friend dare even look at him sideways because he's a 20-year-old mass. But he's traumatized. He's hurting. He's broken, and nobody is going to say anything. And when his brother tries to reach out to him, you got to understand, his brother didn't victimize him necessarily, but by constantly bringing that friend over. Constantly. He lent his brother. He didn't know. Just like the parent who tried to raise children out of their trauma. Have you ever heard of somebody trying to raise a child who struggles with substance abuse? It's not impossible, but to raise them well is highly improbable. So imagine if you are a person who is inebriated off your trauma. If you're a person wearing this trauma quilt, your affections are all messed up. Come on. This is what happens. Your affections get twisted and mangled. You don't even, one of the things that you struggle with is, who do I trust? Because you were not taught trust in an environment where trust is nurtured. For example, I trust my mother, father, sister, and brother explicitly. Explicitly. I am raising my son to trust me explicitly, openly, without hesitation on anything. It's not bragging, it's fact. That young man will be able to trust me no matter what he goes through, even if he's the perpetrator, because he knows I'm going to tell him truth. He's heard me do broadcasts just like this. He trusts me explicitly. The fact of the matter is that that's not something that you just get. You have to earn that. You have to earn that. So if you were raised in an environment where you couldn't trust your mother, your father, you couldn't trust any of the grown people, you couldn't trust them, what do? Now that you're grown, married, single, children, no children, what do? When you haven't been able to trust anybody, and then maybe some decisions you made behind jobs or marriage or whatever didn't work out. Now, not only do you not trust the people who were there to raise you, and the people who were there when you were being raised, you now don't trust yourself. And your interpretation of what trust is, let alone of what it looks like, is skewed. Let's just be honest. It's off. To repair it would take a tremendous amount. I'm going to say the word again, counseling. You got to not only just talk to people that you can trust, because you got to trust somebody, but you have to let them help you unearth it. You got to let them help you to parse it out and to pull and to essentially get that quilt off. Now, we may not be able to just take that quilt off because you don't want to be completely uncovered, but you need somebody who knows how to take off the pieces of that quilt. Again, it doesn't have to be me, but you need somebody like me. And if you can afford it, a licensed counselor, like the people I work with, who are willing, because again, a lot of counselors won't mess with trauma, but you need somebody who can help you walk through. Now, journaling and all those things are nice, but if you don't fully grasp where you're going, then journaling will end up traumatizing you. Trauma is so touchy. I hope you understand by now why people don't touch it, because it's so touchy that even if you don't journal quite right, you'll end up traumatizing yourself. You know what? One of the issues with not addressing traumatic situations for long periods of time, not just days and weeks and even months. No, I mean, when you get into years and decades, is because naturally we don't remember every detail. You think you're remembering every detail, right? So the problem is, no, you don't. Your mind doesn't work that way because you're living. So you naturally repress your life. You don't engage socially because you can't trust anybody. Are you understanding how this works? This is why it's so dastardly, because, and again, trauma is just events that happen. Trauma is not a person, but a person can traumatize, but trauma is not a person. It's not a thing in that way. So you understand. So this traumatic event, you can speak of a trauma as a noun, but it's not a thing that you can put your hand on. It's not tangible. The events are. So now something happened when I was 10. I'm now 30. That's 20 years that has come. I can remember certain things, Gabe. I can remember like it's yesterday. But when somebody says, okay, tell me about it, you start realizing some of the details. You remember the clock, what the clock said, and you remember the noise that was, and now I think it was 10, and then you start realizing to yourself, uh-oh, I'm starting to forget the details. Guess what you're doing? You're traumatizing yourself. Somebody's got to tell you, you're actually traumatizing yourself, because now you're pounding on yourself because you don't remember the details. Sometimes memory loss is a great blessing. I said it. I'll say it again because I liked how it sounded. Sometimes memory loss is a great blessing. Not all the time. Not all. There's some things I need to remember, and I hate when I can't remember it. But sometimes memory loss can be a blessing. Do you really want to remember all the intimate details of whatever? I've been in a few car accidents in my life. I don't want to remember the intimate details of car accidents. I don't want to remember my body being thrown and jarred and jeered. I don't want to remember that. I don't want to remember that. Why would I want to replay that kind of trauma? Why would I want to do that? If you're repressing, Gabe, how do I know if I've been repressing? You have nightmares? You have nightmares every once in a while? Have you ever wondered why you get nightmares every once in a while? Come on, come on. I'm just trying to help you. Have you ever wondered why you get nightmares every once in a while? Is it because you are now being triggered, even though that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago? You are around something, a sound, a smell, a taste. Again, you don't remember the details, but something's triggering it. And because you're being triggered, now you go to bed that night, you can't barely sleep, and now you're having nightmares because you spent 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years repressing and pushing down and pushing down and pushing down. And now it's coming out in a nightmare. You got to understand how your mind, I'm not going to get into that, but how your mind works, the cognition, how our minds work is we need to be thinking. I'm not going to get into all of the nuts and bolts, but we have to think through things. That's how we were built. That's how we were created. And if you refuse to do that, it'll come out in a nightmare. It'll come out in a nightmare. Come out in a nightmare. So, Gabe, you're saying that if when I'm awake, will start facing some of the stuff that went on. I don't have to go into intimate details. Nope. Nope. If I start facing it with the intent to overcome it, quickly sit with the emotions. Don't get upset with yourself because you reflect back on something that happened at 10 and you cry about it. Don't get upset with yourself if you reflect back to something that happened at 30 and you're now 50 and you get angry about it. Don't go out and hit nobody. Don't go out and hurt nobody or yourself. Sit with that anger and get honest with yourself why you feel it. You know what? I'm feeling angry because at that time I was victimized. And I did not have the ability to be able to address the one who was victimizing me. And now let me look around. I've asked this question to people I've given counsel to. Are you still in the midst of an ongoing traumatization? Are you still being victimized? Well, no, that person actually passed away 10 years ago. Okay, so is anybody else victimizing you? Is anybody else traumatizing you? Well, no, nobody's bothering me. I'm fine. Okay, so then that means you're replaying the situation or you're trying to repress it and it's trying to come out. It's time to deal with it. Gabe, when do I deal with it? When you deal with it. When it's trying to come forward, it's time to deal with it. And I actually believe, I mean, let me talk to my Christian brothers and sisters and get out of here. I believe that there's a point, just in case they're listening, I believe that family that I was dealing with, God had every intent to deal with the trauma, using me as one of the people that was meant to be close enough to help them deal with it. I'm absolutely convinced, just in case any one of them are listening, God did not do everything he did for you so that you could keep wearing your trauma quilt. God intended, not Gabe, God intended to use Gabe as just one of the people in this Christian community to help you with that trauma. And if you can believe that, if you can find a way through whatever you're dealing with today, or whenever you might be watching this, to say there's a possibility of the truth of that. Forgive yourself for whatever you may have thought and you may have done. Forgive yourself. It ain't about me. Forgive yourself and go to God and talk to him so that he can guide you to the places that you need to go to overcome what you've been through. To overcome. I'm not that person. I get it. I'm not them. But I'm not him. But you need to find those people that you can trust, that God can guide you to. And it's got to be him. Now, if you are not a Christian listening to this, Gabe, what about me? I don't believe in God. Okay. Well, for you, counseling. Counseling. If you have medical coverage, if you can financially afford it and you don't need medical coverage, it's worth your money. Don't buy another suit. Don't buy another alcoholic beverage. Don't grab another weed joint. Don't go on another cruise. Stop just throwing stuff at this issue. You've been traumatized. Cruises ain't gonna fix it. Drink ain't gonna fix it. Weed, meth, blah, blah, blah ain't gonna fix it. Gambling, I live 5 minutes from a casino, ain't gonna fix it. Getting married, not a good idea. Not a good idea. You're not ready for the weight of helping somebody deal with whatever they've gone through, and you haven't dealt with what you've gone through. Now, if you're already married, that doesn't mean get a divorce. It means you and your spouse need to sit down and say, you know what? I just watched this broadcast and I realized, babe, hun, sweet, whatever y'all call each other, I haven't really dealt with some stuff I've been through. What you mean, babe? You know what I've been? Yeah, I know you've dealt with some stuff, but you know what? I haven't really gotten through it. I haven't worked through it, and I need you to be patient with me, hun. I need you to love me through sickness and health till death do us part, because I do need to spend some time. That means I might not be as emotionally available. I might have some nightmares. I might find myself, unfortunately, and I don't mean to do it, saying some stuff to you and blaming you. You weren't even there. You weren't even a part of what traumatized me. And as a matter of fact, we've been together for a minute now, 2 days, weeks, months, years, whatever, decades. I'm sorry if I have been traumatizing you. I heard it today. I heard it when I watched the broadcast. I apologize. You might have to call your children. You may have to even say something to your great. Do it. You know what? If Paw went off on you, as a matter of fact, I remember sometimes, and you was like, Paw, you okay? And I just told you I was okay. Can I tell you, grandson, can I tell you, granddaughter, Paw wasn't okay. Oh, you wasn't okay, Paw? Paw had been through some things. I won't get into that with you now, but I went through some things when I was your age or when I was a young man. And I went through some stuff, and unfortunately, there was some anger that I hadn't addressed. And I might have went off on you in a way that I didn't need to. I love you. I'm here for you. But Paw got to work through some things. You gonna pray with me? Yeah, Paw, I got you. You'll be amazed how even strong children are. It's amazing. Because they love us. They care for us. I talk very openly relative to his age with my son. And God has blessed me with a son who is willing to walk through even what, because he went through it as well. And he watched his dad go through it. And so I had no right not to invite him in and give him an opportunity, because if he went through any particular trauma, there had been no one in his dad's life for nearly 10 years. So I had no right to keep him from it because he's just 15/16, just turned 16. I had no right to keep that from him. We needed to sit down, and we have multiple times together. And every once in a while, when I'm going through some particular thought process, trying to, hey, this is a process. I'm not getting over it. I don't know why I need to say this, but anybody talking about get over it, look them in their eye Don't cuss them out and tell them you don't know what you're talking about and move on. Send them to me. I'll get them together. This notion of get over it makes no sense. No, you got to process through it. You got to sit with it. And even my 16-year-old son, I don't know how much he understands. That's not the point. He's going to have, and he has had his own traumas in his life. None of y'all business, but he has had his traumas. And I want to teach him that just because you might hit 50 years old, it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to engage your traumas. Least you traumatized, because I refuse to traumatize him behind what happened to me. I refuse to do that. He doesn't deserve that, and nor does anyone, not my coworkers, none of you. No one deserves that, not even those who traumatize me. They don't deserve me turning around and traumatizing them. This ain't no, you got me, I get you. What is that? No. We've got to take responsibility. If nothing else, please hear me. We've got to take responsibility. We didn't perpetrate. We didn't victimize ourselves in terms of the initial things we went through, but we may have been victimizing ourselves, and we need to take responsibility, not kill ourselves, not, no, I'm worthless and nobody, no, Gabe loves you enough to get in front of this camera on Thanksgiving 2025 to say very tough things to you, to take some time out of my otherwise leisure off day where I'm supposed to be chilling and relaxing. I'm sitting here in a suit because I wanted to give my best presentation because I know this subject is tough. I wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving Day. This is a tough subject. You may have to engage this broadcast tomorrow and really take it apart, put it back together, pray about it if that's what you believe in. I believe in that. If you believe in that, pray about it. Talk to the Lord about it. I am of the belief that if we're going to be able to really help each other, we've got to deal with ourselves. For that family I'm referring to, obviously some of you are familiar with who I'm referring to. Obviously, you're on my Facebook page. All I ask you to do is what I've been asking you to do. Pray. But I want you to be specific in your prayer. Pray that they will seek out what they need so that they can overcome and eventually take those trauma quilts off. And if they're listening and they don't like what I say, I don't care. I don't care. I have 30 plus years of experience that tells me that's what's going on. And if they don't get those trauma quilts off, if we don't get our trauma quilts off, if we don't divest ourselves, we don't finally take off these things that we've been wearing, trying to protect ourselves, and we're trying to cover ourselves. These things are cutting us underneath. They're wounding us. We're victimizing ourselves and potentially victimizing each other. I want to live to the fullest extent that God has given. I don't care how poor I am. I want to live to the fullest extent, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. I want to have holistic health. I'm going to close with this. I want to have as healthy a life. I've lost weight. I'm eating better. I am truly mentally at a very good place. I'm so grateful to God for that I can say that. I am spiritually at a great place. My relationship with God is amazing. These insights and all of this kind of thing that I get to share with you are profound. They are magnificent. They are sometimes hard to swallow when God has hit me with them, but I get to share them with you. I'm at a great place in the Christian community that I am in. I'm getting to know the people where I'm fellowshipping, and they're getting to know me. Other than one hiccup, a little bit more than a hiccup, but one event almost a month ago, things are progressing. And when I say progressing, I don't mean I'm on my way to being rich. No, I mean my life is moving forward. And I pray that you can look at every aspect of your life. One thing might not be quite up to par, whatever, what you would hope it to be. But I hope on this Thanksgiving Day and that you will express gratitude when you look at, especially to my Christian brothers and sisters, that you can say, you know what? I may not have the relationship I want to have. See, it's not really about that. And I may have the relationships, but you know what, God, you have really been good. Now, do I need to get better in my finances? Do I need to get better in my physical health? Do I need to get better in my emotional health? Do I need to get better in my mental health? Do I need to get better in an area, one of these 5 areas? You might need to. And I'm here for you the best I can be. I don't have endless time. I do work and have a child and a young man and on and on pursuing a pastoral opportunity. But as much as I can be, I want to be here for you as best I can. And if nothing else, I can pray for you. If nothing else, I can call on the Lord for you. If nothing else, I can reach out to the heavens on your behalf and ask the Lord to look down in your situation as I pray for that family as well. I wish no ill will on them. I wish nothing. They were about to be my family. I of course, I want them to be blessed of God. And that starts with, and I have this scripture, perfect timing, John chapter 8, verse 32. 32 says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You are not freed by people just patty caking you. That's not going to free you. Freedom doesn't come from buying stuff. That's not, you shall be able to buy a car, and the buying the car shall make you free. Psychological, emotional freedom, mental freedom, spiritual freedom, which is what he's referring to, is not going to come by just keeping my children's and my grandchildren's or my spouses or my best friends close, but nobody can touch anything. Nobody can talk about the trauma. And even if we do talk about it collectively, we all facing it. We're all under the same trauma quilt, and no one can actually really present getting off under this thing. You don't let anybody do it. Nobody can tell you, you know what, we need to take this thing off, because now you think that they're working against you because you're not ready to take the thing off. So you're ready to make them the black sheep and kick them out and silence them, and then can't figure out why they don't talk, because you keep attacking them because they're tired of being under that quilt with you. They didn't traumatize you. Why are you forcing them to get under that quilt and get stuck and stabbed and all of that kind of thing? No, I'm not getting under a quilt with you. I'll come and stand outside and help you take it off if you want to take it off, but I'm not getting under that. I have a boundary. I've had enough trauma in my life to not want to get in there and get all down in there with you. Oh, man, oh, people just hurt us, huh? People are just people. No, we're wearing this thing. Take it off. It's like I took that jacket off. It's time to take, and you may have to do piece by piece. Again, I get it. You can't just take it all the way off like I took that jacket off, but at least let somebody come alongside you. Help you take that thing off. We love you. We wish you a wonderful day on this Thanksgiving 2025. Be blessed.